All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, the Tuesday edition of Unqualified Analysis. That means what? You guessed it, college football Week 9 recap coming at you. We are, all of a sudden, you look up, we are on the home stretch of the season, folks. We've only got, I think 4-5 weeks left, if you're including the conference championship games. Fall's flying by right now, folks. We have got to really savor this while we got it, because I feel like this one's passing by faster than any season that I've ever experienced before it. So, in that interest, we're going to take a look back at the week that was. Not the greatest week. I can think of one particular game that's sticking in my craw, and we'll certainly get to that at some point, about how I cheer for maybe the worst team in the Power Four, but, we'll get to that when we get to it. Not a crazy week as far as upsets are concerned, but I think we are learning very quickly, and this is going to be a running theme throughout the show as you look through the wins this past week. The college football playoff is absolutely wide open, and I'm not just talking about the bids. Yes, those are wide open, but just the championship in general, absolutely wide open. We're going to discuss all that, and I'm just going to elaborate on that as we go along. But, hey, I'm your host, Caleb. You can follow me on the Twitters at CalebVUA. Link is down in the description. Outside of that, let's just get into this bad boy. So, we'll just go, we'll go chronologically. We can just kind of breeze past this first game, but we will give Pitt their props, man. I mean, they came into this one, for all intents and purposes, this was a weird game. I mean, they got outgained by Syracuse. The problem is Kyle McCord threw 64 passes for 321 yards, and notably, very notably, in fact, 5 interceptions with no touchdowns. I believe he threw 3 pick sixes, I want to say, and that I might be just pulling that one straight out the old keister, but bad game for Kyle McCord. Real bad game for Kyle McCord, and Syracuse, year one, new coach, not that good. I mean, they're better than they were last year, seems like, so hey, give them credit there. Fran Brown seems to be doing a good job in year one, but they faced an actual team, and it didn't turn out all too well. So hey, there is that. Pittsburgh, though, 7-0, man. They are a real dark horse contender for the ACC. They're a clear third behind Miami and Clemson, but make no mistake about it, Pittsburgh undefeated. They are still very much in this thing. And hey, if they can win out the rest of the year, they're going to bump Clemson out of that ACC championship spot, looks like. So, it depends. Do they play either Clemson or Miami, or even both? They play Clemson, in fact. So, if they win out the rest of the season, they will bump Clemson out of the playoff for all intents and purposes. 2 losses, not unheard of, but in the ACC, we're not talking the Big Ten, we're not talking the SEC, we're talking the ACC, probably a 2-bid league tops, I would say, at this point. 3 bids is going to be stretching it, so it's really a dogfight to get into that ACC championship matchup, because that's your best ticket to get into the college football playoff, whether it be as an automatic bid or an at-large bid. Pittsburgh very much in this thing, though, man. They're just going to keep on winning. I would say they faced the biggest test of their season so far, because, they really haven't played. Looking at this slate of teams, let me just go down the list, and you tell me where the big test is coming. We got Kent State, Cincinnati, West Virginia, Youngstown State, at North Carolina. They were also at Cincinnati. I guess you could kind of chalk that one up to a little bit of a test, because Cincinnati was, 5-2 before this week, now 5-3. So at North Carolina, Cal, Syracuse. Not a team that's sniffing the top 25 in that bunch. That's going to change this next week. They're going to travel down to Dallas to face off against SMU. It's an 8 p.m. kick. ACC Network. I'm telling you what, man, that's a ranked matchup. That one should be on main, man. That should be on one of these other main channels. Got to find a way to get a ranked matchup on a network that's not the ACC network. Like the game we're about to talk about next year, Boise State UNLV, CBS Sports Network on a Friday night. You just can't happen. You just simply can't happen with games like that. But hey, just tells you, I guess it's a loaded slate. or the big brands are playing. I don't know. Or it just means that people want to watch the big brands and they don't necessarily care about a good game. More likely that last one. But hey, either way, I've gotten way off the sidetrack, the tangent here. Pittsburgh's going to face their first big test of the season with SMU, another real dark horse contender in that ACC. We're going to find out what both those teams are made of. I think SMU is pretty solid at this point. Pittsburgh, I maybe feel the same. I mean, they went up 31-0 at halftime against Syracuse. Obviously, part of that was the defensive plays, the defensive touchdowns. But still, they've been dominant at times this year. We'll see what happens when they face off against a real test. I'm really looking forward to that in Week 10 coming up here this weekend. So we'll just keep it moving from there. I would say the game with the most implications this week, Boise State at UNLV. I mean, this was essentially like, hey, loser kind of leaves town when you're talking about the G5 playoff rankings here. I think you're going to have to be one loss or less in the G5 in order to get that automatic bid with the conference championship. And hey, if Army finds a way to win against Notre Dame and they win out, that's going to be them no matter what. But if Army gets one loss, I don't see them getting another loss throughout the course of the rest of their schedule. So, and especially with Navy, I don't really see another loss for them until probably the Army-Navy game in all likelihood. I haven't really looked at their schedule, quite frankly. But still, yeah, this was a must-win for both Boise State and UNLV. Ultimately, Boise State goes on the road. It's an absolute banger. They're down 24-23 heading into the fourth quarter. UNLV, it's a back-and-forth game in the second half. I mean, really, both halves of the game. First, UNLV jumps out to a lead. Then Boise State storms back in the second quarter, retakes the lead, gets a comfortable lead going into halftime. UNLV storms back, takes the lead going into fourth quarter. Then all of a sudden, what does BYU do? Not BYU, Boise State do? They just get nails when the situation matters most. Maddox Madsen had some big-time plays in this one. Ashton Genty, I mean, the poor kid's knees are just dust after this game, I'm imagining. I mean, 33 carries, 128 yards. He was running into loaded boxes pretty much the entire day. So not ideal, but hey, a little bit of a comeback down to earth moment. And just to tell you how hard it is to win a Heisman as a running back, he dropped down to fifth just from one semi-down week where he still got 120 yards on the ground. Times is tough as a running back here. Always kind of have been. But big time win for Boise State. They pull out the win, 29-24. Didn't hit the over. It is what it is. We're 4-4 heading into Monday night. All eyes are on Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. Please, Mike, just take me to the promised land. I beg of you. Please take me into the promised land here. So we're waiting on that. But yeah, this was we started off the weekend with the loss. Bad vibes going into Saturday. Should have known that you end off Friday night, and that bleeds into Saturday morning. Let's not forget, this was a 10:15 kickoff, 10:30 kickoff, and they played this thing until about 2 in the morning. So that bled right over into Saturday, and I'm solely blaming this game for my trials and tribulations on the board this week. Hey, at the very least, worst case scenario, we're one game under 500. You'll be able to find that out pretty easily by checking if the Steelers won by 6 or more. If they won by 6 or more, we're golden. We're 5-4 on the week. We're making inroads on the all-out offensive against the board here. However, on the other hand, if they didn't win by 6 or more, or in fact if they lost, just kind of still up shit creek. We do have a paddle, but the creek is real thick with shit right now. We're going to have to keep on paddling through here. I hope that was a good enough metaphor for you. Hey, we're just going to keep on working. What was I even talking about? Oh, yes, Boise State. So, all the credit in the world to UNLV. I think Hajj Malik Williams had kind of an off game in this one. Let's just kind of call it like it is. But still, 12 of 21, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, still 8.5 yards per attempt there. Also got over 100 yards in the ground. Hajj Malik Williams, you remember that time where Matthew Sluka transferred and everyone made a big deal about it, or redshirted and everyone made a big deal about it because UNLV was in the playoff picture? I think it's pretty safe to say that they upgraded with Hajj Malik Williams, and it kills me that UNLV is out of this thing because they're such a fascinating team. I love their offensive coordinator, the go-go offense here, man. He's kind of created an offense that I'm not sure it would work in the pros, but at the college level, man, it's option-oriented with a vertical element to it. It's just such a fun offense. It creates big plays left and right. The problem with relying on those big plays is sometimes you get stymied and it doesn't exactly work out the way that you drew it up. But it isn't just dropping shit out of my pocket. What am I doing, man? What am I doing? I'm sorry. That was just completely unprofessional of me. Hey, hand up. Hand up. I fucked up, guys. I fucked up. That's on me. That's on me. It's not going to happen again. But either way, again, all the credit in the world to UNLV. It kills me that they lost this game because they're going to need some absolute chaos in the G5 to really make some inroads at, even the Mountain West Championship. This was a brutal loss. Boise State's now 3-0 in conference. UNLV is now 2-1 with a head-to-head loss to Boise State. That is going to hurt a lot, and they're going to have to be a clear number 2 in this conference, I would say, because I'm just not sure Boise State's going to lose a whole lot of other games. They might not even lose another game on the schedule right now. So tough loss for UNLV. I love what Haj Malik Williams brings to the table, though. I think he's a fascinating guy to watch. I mean, if I were an NFL scout, I'd love to see what he could do against big time competition. At the very least against I don't know, like if he played in a Power 5 conference, we'd have a much better idea of what his skill set is overall. But I mean, he's big, he's fast, he has a rocket arm, very, very good arm. I mean, I like what I was seeing from Haj Malik Williams, so don't get me wrong here. But I'll tell you what, Boise State has the inside path now in the G5, I would say. Their one loss was maybe the best loss that they could possibly have. Now, the current number 1 team, Oregon, they took them right down to the wire, lost by 3 points in a thrilling matchup, 34-31. Ashton Jeanty went off in that game like he's gone off in every single game this season so far. So that's your one loss on the resume. If you get all the way through, I think an 11-1 or a 12-1 Boise State compared to a 13-0 Army team, let's just say, I think you give the nod to Boise State because that one loss was so big. It was such a big loss. It was such a good loss, really, that you'd have to almost rank Boise State ahead of Army because Army's not going to really play anyone outside of Notre Dame. Now, that being said, assuming that Army goes 13-0, it would mean that they beat Notre Dame, which at that point, if you're resume watching, maybe Boise State has played more high leverage games, more high level competition, but they don't have a win as good as Army. So that would put the committee in a real pickle, but choosing between those two. My personal preference is for, I don't have a personal preference. I think Army is spectacular this year. It's just going to be an interesting down the stretch look at them as they finish out this season. I think they're going to have to be dominant in order to make the case as that 5th automatic qualifier. But that is a situation to monitor. They certainly have the inside track, I would say. Them and Army are pretty much neck and neck in that discussion. But hey, I'm not sure they're really going to get tested all that much throughout the rest of the season. I mean, you look at what's coming up. San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, Oregon State. That they should win every single one of those games. Those are all, it's right ahead of them. 11-1 is right ahead of them. And in all likelihood, just looking at what's in the conference, I guess maybe Colorado State makes a run. I'd have to see if UNLV plays Colorado State. Maybe San Diego State can give Boise State some problems. I don't know. UNLV, I think if they run the table and they win out in their schedule, they're going to probably match up again with Boise State in the championship game, which would just be electric, just all time. Good theater. And big thing for UNLV, they do play San Diego State down the stretch this year. Now, they do not play Colorado State, so there is that. Something to keep in mind there at when this whole thing is said and done. But they do play San Diego State, and Boise State, I believe, plays Colorado State at some point. I want to say. I'm really just going way too long in this game. I'm going to have to wrap it up here soon. No, that's weird. How do neither of them play Colorado State this year? Just a interesting sort of lapse in scheduling. That'd be a real shame if right now 5-3 Colorado State just finds a way to piece together a resume to go to the Mountain West Championship. That'd be tough for UNLV. I'm going to say that right now. That'd be real tough for UNLV, but I'm going way too far down the rabbit hole here. We've got to reel ourselves back in because we're on our second game here, man. We got to pick up the pace. So, yes, that was probably the most consequential game of the weekend. Let's just go chronologically from here. First and foremost, this is why I didn't bet on this game. Illinois, number 20. All the credit in the world to them. They've put together some solid wins so far this year. They're 6-2. However, this most recent loss to Oregon, they lost 38-9 because Oregon's the one team in the nation that maybe not looking infallible, but seems to get better every single week when other teams around the nation are just floundering right now. I mean, like I said, you don't have that problem with Oregon. If there's a clear-cut number one, it is Oregon, I would say, and they should have the inside track to the national championship game at this point. However, there is probably either a matchup with Penn State, which they might actually play Penn State anyways. Let me just look at that real quick. They do not play Penn State. In fact, as far as looking at Oregon's schedule, unless they fall asleep one of these games, we got Michigan, we got Maryland. We're at Wisconsin in Camp Randall. That's probably the sneakiest spot. And then Washington, final week of the year. Rivalry, things happen there. They should win. Then they will be probably fairly substantially favored in each of their last 4 games. Even being on the road at the Big House, I don't think it really matters. And we're going to take a look at that line at the end of this episode. There's a real chance that I go ahead and just throw a few shekels on that one just because Oregon is so much better of a team than Michigan. And yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, Oregon should run the table at this point. Basically, it's just a matter of whoever wins that Ohio State-Penn State game. And hey, let's not overlook Indiana here, man. Indiana could very easily find themselves in a situation where they bump out maybe... hey, if Ohio State beats Penn State and, Indiana keeps on winning, they're going to bump out, one or both of those teams in all likelihood. I should probably see if Penn State plays Indiana. They do not. They do not, actually. Ohio State does play Indiana, though, I'm fairly certain. Just gotta make absolutely 150% sure that they play Indiana. Yes, they do. They play Indiana second to last week of the season. So, hey, there's a real path here. Like, picture this. Now, this is going to be fairly simple to envision here. First off, Ohio State beats Penn State. Penn State now drops to 1 loss in the conference. So we have that established, right? Later on, fast forward 2 weeks here, they play against Indiana. I guess it would be 3 weeks, whatever. You get the deal. So they play against Indiana at that point, and Indiana beats them. They finish the season undefeated. At that point, it would be Indiana versus Oregon, assuming that Oregon wins out in the Big Ten championship game. Effectively, Ohio State still probably gets in. Penn State still probably gets in, but neither of those teams are playing for the Big Ten championship, which would make sense. That would kind of fall in line with the projections of 4 bids per super power conference. It's a power 2 right now, and that's kind of the 4 or 5 bids for each of the SEC and Big Ten. I think that seems pretty standard at this point. I think you're going to get both the teams in the championship in there, then probably two wild cards in there, just kind of depending on how the rest of the season shakes out. But hey, if we're talking Big Ten championship, Indiana, they are right there. I'm not sure they're going to keep Kurt Signetti more than 1 year. He's going to get hired by someone pretty quick, I would say. Pretty quick. Okay. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but Penn State took care of business versus Wisconsin, 28-13. Drew Aller did go out of this game. Who is his backup? He had some weird name, a fun name actually. Bo Prabula. Fun stuff. Ultimately, Bo Prabula came in though. Not bad. 11 of 13, 98 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. one touchdown, no interceptions, didn't turn the ball over. Hey, serviceable stuff. Serviceable stuff. Hey, even gave you a little bit of juice on the ground where, Drew Aller's that's not really his bag at the end of the day. What am I even scratching there? Okay, I need to stop getting distracted on this one. But hey, ended the hot streak for Wisconsin. It was fun while it lasted. You just faced off against the cream of the crop here, and that'll happen. That'll happen from time to time. Let's look at Wisconsin's remaining schedule, though. And if you thought they were going to get a break, not so fast, my friend. They're on the road at Iowa this coming week. Then they play Oregon. Then they are at Nebraska. Then they play Minnesota. They could conceivably lose their next 3 games before ultimately playing for a bowl berth in the last game of the season. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's going to tell me a lot if Wisconsin finishes 8-4, 7-5. It's going to tell me a lot. I'll tell you that right now. Like, if they win all those other games, but they lose to Oregon, I'd be very impressed. Very, very impressed with the slate that's left for them. Excuse me. But hey, credit to the boy over there, Luke Fickell. Seemingly, still passing the hell out of the ball. I think it's kind of a necessity at this point. But playing better football, down week, still building the roster. You can make an argument that it shouldn't take this long in the modern era. And hey, fair enough. They've kind of whiffed on the transfer portal quarterbacks the last 2 years under Luke Fickell. So I'll give you that. But hey, nothing to hang your head about right now. Still 5-3. Still very much in it for a bowl game. All you got to do is win uno mas game, and you are in the thick of things, man. It doesn't take a whole lot at this point. So yeah, tough stretch, but you know what? I believe in Luke Fickell. I choose to believe in Luke Fickell. Okay, Ohio State in the first stop of everyone looks fallible at this point. Ohio State hosts Nebraska. Nebraska took them right down to the wire in this one. Nebraska never led in this game, I will say, but at the same time, still they hung in it. I mean, Ohio State only won 21-17. It could have been a whole lot worse. And I mean, Will Howard, by the numbers, doesn't look too bad. I mean, 13 of 16, 221, 13.8 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and that was his only turnover of the game. So, I mean, it looks okay on paper, and there wasn't a whole lot of turnovers. There just wasn't a whole lot of explosiveness. They didn't get any rushing touchdowns. They only ran the ball a 2.1 yard per carry clip. In fact, they didn't even get over 300 yards of offense in the game. They were close to being outgained. I mean, they had roughly the same amount of yards as Nebraska on the other side, just like 10-ish yards more, like 9 yards, like barely even more yards than what Nebraska had. And you look at this Ohio State team, they are eminently fallible right now. There's no other way to put it. They are, they're not a bad team. They're just not as good as they should be. And I'm thinking right now, just listening to the Ohio State faithful, and they are insane people. We've talked about that before on this podcast, but hey, they are calling for Ryan Day's head right now. And I mean, Ohio State's not dumb enough to do that in the middle of the season. They're going to wait and see what happens on down the stretch here. But the line set, I think reasonably set by the fans here, even though they do act like spoiled children when things don't go their way. It's a reasonable line that they've set to where I think Ryan Day has to win the Big Ten this year. And, certainly, if he loses against Michigan, credit to them. I'm sure they will have patience and wait until it's all said and done. The only way you're saving your job at that point is if you win the Big Ten championship. Though you're probably not going to get there with 2 losses at that point. But you got to win the national championship. Otherwise, you are fired, sir, if you lose to Michigan this year. If they lose to the Big Ten, again, you are going to have to win a national championship in order to save your job. At the very least, if you win the Big Ten, but you don't win the whole thing, they're still, also beat Michigan. That is very important. But if you do both of those things, you're giving yourself a little bit of leash to where you can reasonably still, keep yourself around for another year after this, because, you had the big regular season. even then there's still going to be conversation. I mean, the bar is set so high for Ohio State this year that it just feels like, with how they're performing right now, I could very easily see them not running into shape down the stretch of this season. Ryan Day gets fired, and here's the twisted scenario that plays out in my brain that it makes me die a little on the inside. At first, we'll explain here in a little bit, but imagine this. Billy Napier gets fired at Florida after just getting excoriated down the stretch, just set on fire down the stretch by the schedule that they've got coming up. They're about to hit that legendary gauntlet that we were all talking about going into the preseason there. So Billy Napier gets fired. Florida does what we've been expecting them to do for probably 4 or 5 years now. They hire Lane Kiffin away from Ole Miss. Everything seems lost at Ole Miss. Then all of a sudden, Ryan Day gets fired at Ohio State. Ryan Day lands right back on his feet with Ole Miss. Now, this is a nightmare scenario in my head at the very first, because I do think Ryan Day is a very good head coach. I do think that he can recruit, and I think that he can work the portal with some of the best of them. That being said, he has lost to Michigan for 4 straight years and has had a big-time propensity to lose big games, especially to rivals, which would feel very good as a Mississippi State fan if those trends continue the direction that they are going at the moment, and he was at Ole Miss instead. Now that would be satisfying. Don't get me wrong. Now if Ole Miss and somehow by the grace of God Mississippi State both get good, but Ole Miss doesn't have the clutch gene and they're choking left and right, I mean, that might be the best scenario of all right there. So intrigued by that one. Just putting it out there. Now, that is a doomsday scenario that, haunts my nightmares, but also tickles my dreams a little bit, too. It's kind of a fascinating dichotomy that I've got going on when it relates to that scenario, but just one to watch. Just putting it out there, just walking you through the way my brain just kind of goes off on tangents sometimes. Yeah, that is all to say, Ohio State looks more than fallible. They're facing the second ginormous game of the season this week when they face off against Penn State. It's going to be a big couple weeks for Ohio State, especially with Indiana coming up. It's going to be a big couple weeks for them to really cement themselves as one of the best teams in the country. And I'm not entirely sure that they are right now, frankly. They're just not quite. They're not quite the great team that I expected coming into the year compared to what their roster is and what they've ultimately been throughout the course of this season. So yeah, again, another team, I'd say one of the two that we were coming into the season saying they are legit, they're the best teams in the country. Georgia might be rounded into form, but Ohio State looks more than fallible at the moment. There is no one great team. Even Oregon, I'm not sure that we would consider them great to this point because they've shown flaws of their own right. So there is no one great team this year, and it's going to set up for some real chaos in November. I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait. As the leaves change, we get closer to the most exciting time of the football calendar, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. Texas kind of got a bit of a scare on the road at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has been giant killers this year, and they almost pulled it off again in this one. Ultimately, though, Texas gets the win, 27-24. Obviously, a bit of a letdown spot after a big win last week against Oklahoma. That being said, you just can't have this happen. You just can't have this happen. Well, I guess it was they just lost to Georgia last week. No, I'm not even thinking about Oklahoma. They just got run off the field by Georgia. You expect a team that is like well-coached, championship contender to just come out of the gates running and just put the clamps on Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt's a solid team. Don't get me wrong. They're a solid team this year. They are much, much, much better than they have been really since James Franklin left, quite frankly. They have not been this good since James Franklin was there, so they deserve all the credit in the world for what they have done this season. That being said, Texas is a much, much better football team. They should have won this game by a lot more, and it once again, speaking to that theme, there is no one great team that's going to run away with this year. The closest we've got is Oregon, and they too have flaws. We are trending towards chaos right now. I'm interested to see what the next couple of weeks holds for Texas, especially with the quarterback situation. I mean, it's weird how they go back and forth. I guess that's the luxury of having a really high-end backup like Arch Manning. But it's just weird sometimes. Like Quinn Ewers gets benched after the first quarter in the game against Georgia. Arch Manning doesn't play well. Quinn Ewers goes back in there. Credit to him, it didn't seem to affect him too much, but they never really got their strengths going. Quinn Ewers doesn't perform. I mean, the numbers are good. 288, 3 touchdowns. But, you know, you watch the game, there's a reason that Vanderbilt was hanging in this thing. So there's that. They never really stepped on the gas in this one in a way that you would expect for how this team is built. Again, just keep coming back to this, keep harping on it. It's probably in the title of the episode, quite frankly. There is no one standout team. Now, obviously, that's not going to be all in the description there or in the title. Yeah, that's the moral of this episode here. Anyone can win this year. I mean, I'm not anyone. I'm talking anyone like within the top 8. I would say could win this year. This would be a great year for an 8-team playoff. I think we can meet at that 4 team was not enough teams, but hey, an 8-team or a 6-team playoff this year would be electric. Absolutely electric, I would say. 12 teams going to be all right too, but it's anyone's game, I would say, in the top 8, 10, maybe. It's that wide open this year that you could make an argument for 10. So hey, there is that, and there's probably still people that are going to be bitching and moaning, and the powers that be in college football are going to be like, yes, give me more money. Yes, expand it to 14 teams. Expand it to 24 teams. Please, just expansion. Give me more money. That's what you sheep will do, and it is what it is there. I got a little personal there. I apologize. But yeah, it's wide open this year. That's the moral of the story. It is wide open this year. Miami, I mean, they haven't looked great over the last several weeks. They didn't look fantastic in this one, but they took care of business. They did win. They did cover for us, 36-14, against a really bad Florida State team. I believe this was the first game of the season where Cam Ward did not throw over 300 yards. Good thing is Damian Martinez went 15 carries, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'd say that's the best game that he's had since he came over to Miami from Oregon State last year. Miami, I mean, they just keep on chugging along. Let's see what they've got ahead on the schedule here, man. They should win every single one of their final games here. I mean, we went through it last week, but I mean, they play Duke at home. They're on the road at Georgia Tech. That's probably the sneakiest spot. And then they play Wake Forest, and then they're at Syracuse, another kind of sneaky spot, but I just think they're better than what Syracuse is. They should win out. They should be undefeated going into the ACC title game, and there's not a whole lot of excuses for them if they don't, barring injuries to key players, obviously. So yeah, even them though, they're undefeated, but are we saying that Miami is the best team in the country? No one rational is. I'll tell you that right now. So again, another team, could they make a run at a championship, ultimately win it? When you got a quarterback like Cam Ward, abso-fucking-lutely you can. Am I going to bet hard-earned money on them to do it? You're damn right I'm not. I am absolutely not. It's a wide open season. That's the best way to put it. And I'm not a huge fan of the 12-team playoff. I think that's been pretty storied at this point. But if ever there was a year to have it, it would probably be this year. Man, I don't agree with the automatic G5 bid, but hey, I like the way this is shaping up as far as the product at the end of the year. So credit to you, money-hungry sons of bitches. It might be okay for year one. I just can't wait to see how you ruin it even more. But I digress. Texas A&M got themselves a big win this weekend, and we were riding with them, and it felt good. It felt real good, I'll tell you what. Texas A&M wins 38-23, and we had ourselves a quarterback change in this one. Once again, Connor Wegman was not playing well. You see an emotional conversation on the sidelines, really just kind of a lecture by Mike Elko to his quarterback, Connor Wegman. You can tell Wegman got bad news. All of a sudden, Marcel Reed comes in, and frankly, I don't think Texas A&M is looking back at this point. Now, Marcel Reed, he only threw 2 passes. Let's not Let's not get out of our minds here. Those passes did go for 70 yards total, though. He did ultimately run for 3 touchdowns in this game, and Texas A&M's rushing offense looked unstoppable with him at the helm. I don't think there is a way that you can go back to Connor Wegman throughout the course of this home stretch of the year. With the defense that you got, 3 interceptions on Garrett Nussmeier in this game, held LSU to 1.6 yards per carry, and a lot of that does have to do with the fact that LSU is a terrible rushing. Oh, Jesus. I just got a bad headline about Diddy, which, what else is new, but goodness gracious. A lot of that does have to do with the fact that they can't run the ball to save their life, but at the same time, Garrett Nussmeier is a solid quarterback, and you got 3 interceptions off him, and that is nothing to sneeze at there. Absolutely nothing to sneeze at. It's a scary team, man. Nick Scorton is looking like every bit of a first round pick, maybe a top half of the first round sort of pick. He is looking fantastic. There's players littered all throughout the defense. The secondary is really, really solid. Texas A&M, they're 5-0 in the conference. They are all alone at the top of the SEC right now with Georgia trailing them. This Texas A&M team in year 1 under Mike Elko, you're seeing the potential of this program, and basically they're at South Carolina this next week. That game will be interesting. South Carolina is never to be trifled with. You're not getting them in Cocktober. That is good news. You're getting them right in the middle of November. But still, going on the road to South Carolina, never an easy task, and weird shit just happens with Shane Beamer as their head coach. So watch out for that one. But you play New Mexico State, you're at Auburn. You should win those next 3 games. They will be favored in each of those next 3 games, I would venture to say. Then you got the big one. Final week of the season, you get Texas at home in Kyle Field. Best possible scenario for you. There's a real scenario where they finish undefeated and find themselves in the SEC title game. If they win that Texas game, they're in the playoff. Make no mistake about it. They might be in the playoff if they just win their next 3 and then lose to Texas, quite frankly. 11-2, 10-2 to end off the regular season. Depends on if they make the title game this year. Man, they are nothing to sneeze at right now. They have, like I said, they have a real identity. That Notre Dame loss in week 1 is aging like fine wine, just like the Notre Dame win in week 1 over Texas A&M is aging like fine wine in the other direction. Their one loss is really, really good, kind of like Boise State, just obviously a lot more credit because they're playing in a Power 5 conference. If they only have 2 losses, they're probably an at-large bid somewhere in that 9 to 12 range, I would say. Texas A&M is a really, really good team. They're a really, really good team. And LSU, not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. They just have 0 margin for error. If you're a 2-loss team coming out of the SEC in the 12-team playoff era, you are going to the playoff. Unless you're Missouri and your schedule is just utter horseshit, you are going to the playoff with that resume in mind, and LSU would be more than deserving just based on the makeup of their team if they did end up doing that. So yes, there is a path for them still. They are not eliminated, despite what Danny Cannell may have told you online. They just have no more margin for error. So it's put up or shut up time for LSU. Don't be surprised if they make a move on Brian Kelly this offseason if he doesn't do well down the stretch here. Even if he catches a 3rd loss, don't be shocked if they make a move. That's one to watch that may catch some people by surprise. But if you have LSU fan friends, if you kind of follow the vibe around that program, it wouldn't shock me at all if that happens. So that is one to definitely watch. If LSU falls apart down the stretch this year, or even if they catch 1 or 2 more losses, like if they finish 8-4 or 9-3 even, I think there's a good chance that Brian Kelly is no longer the head coach at LSU. So again, something to keep in mind, something to watch going forward for this really just the SEC conference in general. We might have some big openings coming up here. BYU, they remain undefeated at the top of the Big 12. They win against UCF 37-24. They cover the spread. I believe they smash the over as well. Thank you very much, sirs, on both of those fronts. But BYU 8-0. Once again, BYU. He calls him that himself. I'm not being insensitive. BYU, Jake Retzlaff, the starting quarterback for BYU. Not known as a particularly prolific passer, but did all right in this game, man. 16-24, 228, 2 touchdowns, and he's really more of a runner than a passer, I would say. So where even is he? 14 for 38. You take out the sack yardage, it doesn't count. But, still 5 yards per carry as a team. He got 1 touchdown on the ground. Only had the 1 turnover. He had a fumble. Hey, BYU just took care of business in a game where they were not favored on the road at UCF. I don't know, man. I feel like sportsbooks are just a little bit off on BYU right now, and we might have to be riding them going forward at this point, because I'm still not entirely sure that the sports books models are properly accounting for just how good this BYU team is. For whatever reason, be it schedule, resume, all that sort of stuff, they just haven't climbed up the power ratings for these books. That's one we're going to have to watch. UCF is an abomination, and that's all I have to say about them. They are, them and Oklahoma State, the 2 biggest disappointments for me in this season, if I had to say. Had to single out a couple of them. Okay, so we're going to keep moving from here. Talk about crimes against the service academies here in just a second, but first, gotta get a quick gulp of this. Yep, that's work related. No, don't need to say a damn thing about that. Okay, so Notre Dame goes on the road at Navy. The Navy faithful was getting excited. Notre Dame was favored substantially in this game, and they covered. 51-14 was the final score. Notre Dame ran roughshod on them. I mean, Blake Horvath did lead the game in rushing as far as an individual player goes. He is still a very solid quarterback by a service academy standard. So hey, credit where it's due there. Notre Dame ran they ran 40 times compared to 25 passes. Riley Leonard had 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground, 8.3 yards per carry, 8.5 yards per attempt. No turnovers in this game. He was spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And then on the other hand, they recovered 5 fumbles and picked off Blake Horvath 1 time. So didn't turn the ball over at all. Created 6 turnovers. That's how you get a blowout of this magnitude. Also, back to what I was saying, 40 carries, 265 yards, 6.6 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns, led by Jeremiah Love with 102 yards on the ground, 8.5 yards per carry. My God, Notre Dame is a hell of a football team right now. That NIU loss seems far, far in the rearview mirror. And yes, Navy has, the record is better than maybe they possibly are as a team. I can give you that. Navy's had a tissue paper soft schedule this year. So something worth noting, but still, to run a ranked team out of the building like Notre Dame did in this game, they're making a push to the playoff. And hey, if they can beat Army as emphatically, I mean, Notre Dame, no reason to think that they won't be a playoff team, especially if they finish with just that 1 NIU loss. They're in. Make no mistake about it, they are absolutely in. Okay, so we'll keep moving from there. Indiana continues to take care of business. It got a little bit dicey at times in this one, but ultimately Indiana pulls away in the end. They win versus Washington 31-17. Backup quarterback starting for Indiana in this one. Curtis Rourke got injured. I believe his thumb got injured in the previous game. Looks like he might be able to go this coming week. That's a health situation we're going to want to keep our eyes on going forward here. Indiana, though, 8-0. Very, very much a playoff contender here. They are climbing up the rankings. Kurt Signetti is probably only going to stay at Indiana for 1 year, I would imagine, unless he just, for whatever reason, doesn't get a big-time offer, which there will be big-time jobs open. I will be shocked, absolutely floored, if he does not get a big-time offer, and we'll see what he does when he gets that offer. That's the big what if, because he is on the older side. I do think he has the drive and ambition that if he gets one of those offers, he's going to take it, but hey, maybe he values things a little bit differently than I do. We'll just have to wait and see on that front. But Indiana right now, let's just stay in the moment if you're an Indiana fan, because this may never happen to you again. This is a fun season. There's a lot to play for down the stretch. They have got some dogs on defense. They've got plenty of dogs on offense. And if Curtis Rourke is playing, this is one of the best teams in the Big Ten, maybe the best coach team in the Big Ten, one of the best teams in the country. Very, very much in the thick of things. Not just for the Big Ten. If they keep playing like this, they are very much in the thick of things for national title. That's how wide open it is this season. I could see Indiana making a run with their current makeup, and if they keep playing like this, they will play Ohio State at some point. We are going to find out. We'll see if they do what they did to Nebraska. Ohio State's a little bit more of a test, but we'll see if they continue to play up to that standard. That's going to be a treat, because I don't think Ohio State's pulling away in that one, and I think Indiana has a real shot to win it. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be real fun. Alabama took care of business against Missouri. How the hell was Missouri still ranked this week? And are they still ranked at 25 this week in the AP poll? I'm pretty sure they are. Just disgusting. You disgust me, AP. Alabama beats them 34-0. It didn't even really look like Missouri got close to scoring in this game. Just sad, bad. Everything is terrible for Missouri. Only thing that's good is that you're 6-2. Everything, all the vibes in the program, just bad. Just stinky poo-poo garbage right now. And hey, my heart goes out to you. My heart does go out to you. Kansas State had to escape in this one against Kansas, but ultimately they do. They improved to 7-1 with a 29-27 win where they just barely squeak by against Kansas in this one. They're cross-state rivals in this game. So yeah, I mean, we kind of forget about Kansas State as well, but they only have the one loss in the Big 12. It is to the Big 12 leader right now. If they keep winning, let's see, they play Iowa State, I believe, in rivalry week. Yeah, last game of the season. That's going to have monumental implications for the Big 12 title game, that Kansas State-Iowa State matchup. Once again, seems like it's a perennial classic. Last year, you may remember, it was a shootout in a snow. I mean, just a torrential blizzard in that game where it was like 45-42 the final. Don't usually see that in those types of games, but that's what that matchup is. That's going to be real fun, especially on the road in Ames. Kansas State's got their work cut out for them. So does Iowa State, though, man. The Big 12 is an eminently entertaining conference. There's not much more I can say about it outside of that. They are just an eminently entertaining conference with so many teams that could win it. Only two are going to the championship game, man, and I'm not sure they're going to get a third bid outside of that. They might not even get a second bid. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But things are shaping up beautifully in the Big 12. It is everything we were hoping it would be, with the exception of Utah not Cam Rising not being able to stay healthy. But big time football in the Big 12 right now. That is the moral of the story. Ole Miss beats Oklahoma 26-14. We have officially gotten into hot seat territory for Brent Venables in year one. Year one under a new contract that they just gave him a big-time raise going into this season. You look like a genius if it works out this season. You look like a real clown if it doesn't. And right now, I'm seeing the makeup. I'm seeing the big colorful wig. I see the hunk. Yep, that is a squeaky nose. You're looking like clowns right now, Oklahoma. And that's where they find themselves. This is another opportunity where if Oklahoma parts ways with Brent Venables this offseason, why wouldn't you take a stab at Curt Cignetti? I like every major job that's going to come open this year. Curt Cignetti is going to get a call. I would be shocked if he didn't get a call for Florida. I would be shocked if If Lane Kiffin does go to Florida, I'd be shocked if Ole Miss didn't give him a call. If Ohio State comes open, I would be floored if they don't give him a call, especially since you're going to get an upfront, close personal audition tape, really, against Ohio State later this year, especially if Indiana wins that game. Boy, that might be the first call they make is to Curt Cignetti. He's going to get an opportunity at one of these big-time institutions next year. I mean, I just don't think Indiana's going to keep him more than 1 year. That's going to be a big storyline throughout the course of this season. Really, it's more of something that we're going to table until the offseason, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind here as we go on. LSU, maybe they don't have a head coach next year. Florida State, I don't think they're going to fire Mike Norvell after one bad year. But hey, wouldn't be shocked if they only finish with one win this season. There's going to be some real opportunities, and I don't know if Curt Cignetti's going to say no to all of them. And I do think all of them are going to call him. That's the best way to put it right now. SMU, they just barely escaped against Duke. They get the win 28-27. I guess Duke either missed an extra point. Oh, yes. Duke's potential game-winning kick blocked as time expired. That was in regulation. I don't know. Maybe they missed a 2-point conversion in overtime. Either way, SMU gets the win. Or maybe Duke missed a 2-point conversion. I don't fucking know, man. All I know is SMU got the win. They're 7-1. They're 4-0 in the ACC, and they too are a big dark horse candidate in the ACC right now. We're going to get a real, I hate to be cliche, but we're going to get a real litmus test game for both Pitt and SMU next week. That is a big-time game in the ACC, and we are looking forward to it right now. We really are. Hey, what is SMU? They're not the running Rebels. That's UNLV. We already talked about them. The Pony Express, they're they're riding up. They're riding up to your city right now. And I'm looking at you, Pitt, although Pitt is riding down to them. So doesn't necessarily apply in this situation. Hey, SMU, the Pony Express might be going all the way to Charlotte. We'll just have to wait and see how this coming weekend plays out and how the season plays out in general. But solid team that Rhett Lashley's got over there at SMU. Solid football team. That is it for the top 25, though. Let us make our rounds around the conferences. Get a quick time check here. 52 minutes. Gonna have to breeze through these real quick, but it is what it is there. I'm up to the challenge. Boston College, man, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory like almost no one we've ever seen in this one. Louisville, makes a torrid comeback in the second half. They outscore Boston College 24-7. Win on a last-second touchdown. Just bad all around, man. I sang the praises of Butt Chin Bill O'Brien to start the season. It's been a little bit of a rocky intervening period after they won against Florida State. Not good. Not good right now if you're Boston College. Louisville gets the must-need win in this one. Both of these teams were fiending for a win. Louisville ends up getting it. And, hey, still kind of alive. Not really good for them, I guess. Virginia Tech beat Georgia Tech. Unfortunately, we bet on Georgia Tech. Won't make that mistake again. Duly noted. Virginia Tech is now 5-3. They're not the playoff dark horse we thought they might be, but, hey, they're not terrible. So that's something to hang your hat on, I suppose. North Carolina beat the hell out of Virginia, actually, 41-14. That's just a matchup of two not very good teams. I think Omarion Hampton is a NFL running back, though. That's the number one person that you should watch when you watch a North Carolina game. Probably just don't watch a North Carolina game, though. They're pretty sad. If you are, though, Omarion Hampton, NFL running back. I'll stake it on that right now. Wake Forest beats Stanford 27-24. And then Cal beats Oregon State. A sad Oregon State team, 44-7. And that is it for the ACC. Let's talk ourselves about the Big 12. And I can think of at least one pretty big-time game that we're going to have to get around to. I'm not talking about Baylor beating Oklahoma State 38-28. Mike Gundy, you are stinking this year. That's my declaration to you. Y'all stink. And I think you're pretty aware of that at this point. one of the most disappointing teams in all of college football, but we don't need to dwell on that. And it's not TCU barely fending off Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech taking them right down to the wire. Classic Big 12 football game in that one. Not talking about that one. We're not even referring to West Virginia going on the road to maybe the most disappointing team in all of the Big 12, maybe one of the most disappointing teams in all of the country in Arizona, and getting a big-time win to get off the schneid, 31-26. No. We're not even talking about Utah losing to Houston. Houston, of all teams, 17-14. No. We are here to talk about the Colorado Buffalo at home, playing against Cincinnati, getting a big-time win, 34-23 over Cincinnati to improve to 4-1 in the conference, 6-2 on the season. They have, I believe, already eclipsed their over/under win total. I want to say, I think it was like 4.5 this year. So they are much better than people expected them to be. And hey, I've not been quiet about criticisms of Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders, and really just the vibes around this team at times, especially preseason. But I'll tell you what, man, you start winning and you start playing really good football, and I'm going to give you your flowers. And I hope Deion Sanders doesn't throw a little hissy fit at me for changing tunes, because hey, I'm just reacting to what I see, and what I see is a Colorado team that is very, very, very much in the thick of things for the Big 12. They could very easily find themselves in the Big 12 title game. Let's take a look at their schedule down the stretch here. Now, you tell me which of these games that Colorado is losing down the stretch here, okay? At Texas Tech, maybe that one. They might lose that one next week. I would not be shocked if they lost that. But check this out right now. Utah, then at Kansas, and then at home versus Oklahoma State. They should finish 9-3 this season with what they have on the roster. They're better than, I would say, all four of those teams. Credit to Texas Tech. I think that's probably going to be a pretty good game next week if I had to guess. But Utah is bad, Kansas is bad, Oklahoma State is bad right now. They should be 9-3 at the end of this year. Now, I don't think 9-3 is going to get you in the playoff. You're probably going to have to finish 10-2. And now it's going to get interesting because they don't play any of these teams down the stretch that are undefeated in the conference right now. Like, Kansas State could fall to Iowa State, and that's kind of the best case scenario. What you really want is just all-out chaos at the top. Now, you can deal with one of those teams being undefeated in the conference, that being BYU and Iowa State right now. And I'm sorry I'm getting off on a tangent, but it'll make sense here in a second. You're going to want either BYU or Iowa State to lose at some point this season, and maybe lose a second time just to be safe. And you're going to want Kansas State to lose again at some point this season in Big 12 play. That is Colorado. And if Colorado just wins out, takes care of business, they finish 10-2, that's not an unheard of scenario for them to ultimately get into the Big 12 title game. And then if they win the Big 12 title game, Colorado, in year 2 under Deion Sanders, would be an 11-2 playoff team. And that is not, I mean not, out of the question at all. That is very, very reachable. That's not some pie-in-the-sky goal. That is something where, yes, they have to have a few things fall their way, but if they just take care of business throughout the rest of this schedule, they're going to put themselves in a really good spot to ultimately contend for a playoff berth. And I do think they're going to have to make it to the Big 12 championship game in order to get there. But I'm not going to be shocked at all if they do. Shedeur Sanders is maybe the best quarterback in the country right now with the way that he's playing. Him and Cam Ward are right there, neck and neck, I would say. Travis Hunter is the best player in all of college football. I don't think there's any debating that right now with what he does on both sides of the ball. Their running game is much better than it was last season. The offensive line is much improved from what it was last season. The defense, much better than what they were last season. They have improved in ways that I did not think they did. Honestly, hey, this is me admitting when I'm wrong. Deion Sanders has done a solid job this season. Now, again, the little, ringing little reminder in the back of the head does say, we'll see what happens when he brings in his own quarterback that is not his son. Fair criticism there for sure. But let's not just act like Shedeur Sanders was this polished, pro-ready quarterback from day one at Jackson State. Deion Sanders does have to get some credit for the way that Shedeur Sanders has developed as a player. So, hey, man, Deion Sanders is doing a hell of a job. Do I like the way that he comports himself at all times? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, he's a guy that's starting to win games at the Power 5 level and could very easily find himself in a Big 12 title game against either BYU, Iowa State, or hey, maybe chaos reigns down the stretch of the season and they play someone else. But I could very easily see Colorado making this Big 12 title game, and the Big 12 is just going to be so exciting down the stretch. Someone's going to lose a game where you're just like, how the hell did they lose that? Conversely, someone's going to win a game where you're just like, where the fuck has that been all season? I feel like one of those teams, BYU or Iowa State, is going to finish this thing out undefeated. I don't think both of them do. I just think this is going to be a really exciting stretch run for the Big 12, and it's going to be some of the most much-watched football in all of the nation. So that is my recommendation to you. Watch Big 12 football going forward. That's all I can say about that. Big 10, USC does beat Rutgers. Rutgers is sad. USC, though, worth mentioning, they did give up 300 yards to Ethan Kaliak-Manis, who was so bad that he had to transfer away from Minnesota. So the vibes aren't fantastic with USC, but they did score 42 points in 3 quarters, so things could be worse, I suppose. Lincoln Riley's a dead man walking. I'll just put it that way. What else we got that I didn't already talk about? Iowa. They're not a playoff team by any stretch of the imagination, but Caleb Johnson's a stud. I mean, quietly, kind of right there with Ashton Genty is one of the best running backs in the entire college football. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, they got their say on that as well. But Caleb Johnson's a star. The Iowa defense, probably not as good as it has been in the past, but the offense is coming alive right now in ways that maybe we didn't expect an Iowa offense to come alive. It's a damn shame that the defense is not as good as it has been, but the offense is really, really playing well right now. Yes, it is against Northwestern, but they weren't scoring 40 on anyone over the last 3 seasons. For them to score 40, and it's certainly not the first time that they've done it this year. They've done it multiple times now. Hey, if you're an Iowa fan, you got to be encouraged by what this new offensive regime has been able to do. Hey, maybe Kirk Ferentz can bring this thing around. You still got Phil Steele, so things could be worse for you. You're going to turn it around on defense at some point. But offensively, hey, man, if they keep playing like this, the future is bright in Iowa. And Kirk Ferentz may ultimately hang around for another 5 years or however long he wants to stay there. Who's to say? Iowa, sneaky team that could upset someone down the stretch, though. Bears watching. Who do they play, actually, down the stretch? I do have to get this thing moving, but they don't really have an opportunity for a big splash upset, I would say, which is disappointing. They already squandered their opportunity against Ohio State, lost pretty substantially there, and then they lost to Iowa State. So two states, Iowa and Ohio, that they lost to. 3. I mean, hey, the 3 losses are to 3 state schools: Michigan State, Ohio State, Iowa State. Hey, they don't have any more state schools, or at the very least schools with state in their name left on the schedule. Hey, if they win the rest of these games, we might be looking at a big time trend here. Just saying. That's my 2 cents on Iowa, though. I don't think you really have to worry about them in the playoff picture, but hey, maybe a little feisty. That Nebraska game, they could win that one. They could win that one in the last game of the season. Who else we got here? Minnesota beat Maryland. Who cares? Michigan beat Michigan State. Michigan State confuses me. Aiden Childs confuses me. Maybe they'll round into shape down the stretch this season. I guess they're better than they have been. They're still probably a couple years away from being anything under Jonathan Smith. Give it time, but they are just not a very good football team. Michigan isn't either, but they did get the win, so hey, credit where credit is due, I suppose. That is the Big Ten, though. Let us talk about, what else do we have left here? SEC, that's pretty much it, and it's going to force me to talk about that game I didn't want to talk about. Yeah, let's just let's rip off the Band-Aid here. Auburn goes on the road to Kentucky, and I know it hurts, but Kentucky loses another game. They're 3-5. Auburn gets a win to improve to 3-5, 24-10. All the credit in the world to him. Jarquez Hunter had 278 yards on the ground. Best game he's had this season. Hey, maybe Auburn's rounding into shape, and you know what, leaning into that run game a little bit more. Credit to them there, but yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Arkansas goes on the road to Mississippi State, and hey, this is why you shouldn't bet based on my homer advice, because I thought Mississippi State was going to win this game. I thought we were going to improve to 2-6, and I thought the future was bright down in Starkville. I thought we were going to be singing Kumbaya, living happily ever after, and Arkansas won 58-25. Taylon Green, a sub 60% completion percentage guy all year, throws 23 of 29, 314, 5 touchdowns, plus 1 touchdown on the ground. Made us look silly on the first touchdown of the game. Vibes are not high right now. We're one of my lowest points as a sports fan right now, cheering for this Mississippi State team. This sucks. This sucks, man. At the very best, Mississippi State is a bottom 4 team in the Power 4. Might even be bottom 3. They are right there in a dogfight with the Purdue's of the world, Florida State's. I'm struggling to think of anyone else right now, but I mean they're right down there with the worst of the worst. They are stinky PU garbage. In a head-to-head versus Houston, Mississippi State might lose that game, and I don't think they would be favored. It's just vibes are so bad right now. I think the defensive coordinator we've got right now is going to be a one and done because they look hapless at the moment, and I don't see it getting a whole lot better throughout the course of the season. But hey, at the very least, the offense is scoring 20-some points. So, I mean, they got hosed. I mean, the refs called back that didn't even call back, just the same line judge in the first half, Seydou Traore, on the goal line initially gets a touchdown. They just mark it short. They go to the review. I think pretty clearly on the review it is a touchdown, and the call stands. At the very least, put the fucking ball at the 1 inch line. Like, what are we doing? They don't even move the ball off of the 1 yard line. Mississippi State gets tackled for a loss, and they turn it over on downs. No points on that one. Then later, Seydou Traore, again, same guy, same pylon, same official, catches the ball, goes over top of the fucking pylon. I mean, this is the worst spot I've ever seen. Like, I'm not usually a guy that gets, like, just crazy upset at officials, but it happened twice this week where, one, and we're going to talk about this on Thursday, last Thursday, the Vikings lost because the official with fucking glaucoma was the guy watching the quarterback get his head torn off with a fucking face mask for a safety that ultimately ends the game. You fuck us. You killed us. We probably weren't going to win anyways, but you fucked us on your call there at the last minute. And then, obviously, Mississippi State wasn't going to win this game. I concede that, but this is a different story if I lost track here. We were talking about the second touchdown that should have been a touchdown but was called short by the same fucking blind line judge there on the goal line. Called him short both times at the 1 yard line. Seydou Traore, while inbounds, goes over top of the pylon, knocks the pylon over. That is a touchdown. And once again, they review it, and they don't call it a touchdown. Play stands on the field. It's the most egregious officiating I have ever seen, and it is not an exaggeration. You can bring up that Rams game with the missed pass interference call back in the day when they were going on their Super Bowl run against the Saints. That call was so bad that the NFL instituted a fake rule where you could review pass interference. That was some bad officiating. This is the worst officiating I have ever seen in my entire life, and I don't think I'm exaggerating on that. 2 clear touchdowns, and it's not just that the fact that they were called short, it is the fact that it was 2 on the replay. They go back, they watch the replay, you clearly see the ball break the plane on both replays, and they do not call back the ruling on the field. They do not overturn it. They stay with the shitty fucking call on the field. That crew should be suspended. And I'm not usually a guy to get this effusive. I've never done this on the podcast, quite frankly. Usually I have blamed the system and saying that refs should be full-time employees. That's not feasible in college. There's too many fucking ref crews in college. You can't do that in college. This crew should be fucking suspended, though. This is egregious. I mean, this is unconscionable how bad their spots were on the goal line. And again, probably didn't make much of a difference. Mississippi State lost by 33. I get that. But that doesn't excuse the fact that 2 crystal clear touchdowns, not only were not called touchdowns on the field, were not, fixed in replay review. It's unconscionable. Someone needs to be punished for it. No one's going to, because Mississippi State lost by so much, everyone's going to forget it. But the worst officiating I've seen in my entire fucking life. We'll leave it at that. And that's it for the Power 4 plus top 25 recap. Let's go ahead the next week, man. I got myself all in a tizzy with that one. I just can't keep letting Mississippi State affect my mentals this much. It's not healthy. It's simply not healthy. Let's just do a quick round robin here of the games that we have got for this upcoming week. First off, Boise State is favored by 23 at home, for 23.5 actually at home versus San Diego State. Big line, probably staying away from that one. Ohio State is on the road. That'll probably be big noon kickoff. If I had to imagine, it is on Fox, so stands to reason that's big noon kickoff this week. Fitting, I will say. Ohio State on the road at Penn State. 4 versus number 3. Ohio State is favored by 3.5. Now, I do not believe in Penn State in this game, given their track record against Ohio State in the past here. Ohio State and Michigan, for that matter, though Michigan is not nearly as much of a factor this season. Given the past record against Ohio State, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Penn State. So I'm probably not betting this game. That being said, in my heart of hearts, I do kind of think the wrong team is favored in this one, so maybe we'll reconvene on that. I think I'll probably ultimately stay away. If there's a lean in this game, under 46.5 might be it. Just putting it out there. 2 really solid defenses and 2 offenses that have struggled at times this year. Both solid, but have struggled at times this year. Miami is hosting Duke. Miami is favored by 20. And they ain't playing Florida State. I have no faith in them to cover the spread. So I'm staying away from them there. 54.5, attractive over there. Attractive over. We might be revisiting that later. Arkansas is hosting Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored by 7. I'm gonna have to get back to y'all on that one. I feel that might be an Arkansas play. This might be an underdog week in this one. I'm just saying it. Army is favored by 23.5 versus Air Force. Now you all know me. I do love betting on service academies to grind Air Force into a fine powder, because that just seems to be what they do. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research, but tentatively lock me in at 23.5 for Army. I think they're gonna run Air Force out of the building. Minnesota is actually favored on the road versus Illinois, -3. That might be an Illinois spot. Minnesota's not that good. I don't know if I have a whole lot of faith in Illinois, but I know I don't have a whole lot of faith in Minnesota. So that's another one we're going to be revisiting here. might be a loaded slate of bets, man. We've already got one locked in with Army minus 23.5. Let's just see where this thing takes us right now. Let's explore the space. Oregon is favored by 14.5 at Michigan. The half point scares me, but it's a strong lean to Oregon right now. I'll say that right now. Georgia is favored by 17 at home versus Florida. Ever so slight lean to Georgia, but Florida's playing some better football than they have been playing. I'm not counting them out in this one. I'm gonna stay away from that spread, especially with Georgia looking fallible at times this year. They are number 2 in the country for a reason, but show me some more, Kirby and co. Show me some more. Iowa State is favored by 14.5 versus Texas Tech. I am staying away from that one. Texas Tech is feisty. I do not believe Iowa State will lose this game, but Texas Tech covering is not the most far-fetched thing I've ever heard. I'm staying away from the over-under because that is quite high. And I do believe in Texas Tech's offense, but I also very much believe in this Iowa State defense. So I'm staying away from that 56.5 over-under, and I'm staying away from the spread for that matter. If I had a lean, I would lean Texas Tech on the spread, Iowa State on the money line for that one. Indiana is a minus 8-point favorite at Michigan State this week, and this is very dependent on the health situation of Curtis Rourke. That is one thing we're going to be watching like a hawk for this coming week, because that changes the dynamic of this game. I don't think I'm going to bet on it either way, but I think Miami should very much win this one with Curtis Rourke in there. Without him, this thing gets interesting. Michigan State could end up pulling a fast one on Indiana and ruining their hopes and dreams when it's all said and done. That's one to watch. Staying away from it, but one to watch nonetheless this coming week. Kansas State is at Houston. Kansas State favored by 12.5. Call it a strong lean to Kansas State. I mean, I don't trust Kansas State, so I won't bet them, but call it a strong lean to Kansas State. Texas A&M is on the road at South Carolina. Only favored by 2.5 is Texas A&M. We might be riding on that one, folks. I love Texas A&M right now. I mean, with a 2.5 line, now if this was a 7-point line, I'd stay the hell away from this, but at 2.5 points, that is a tasty, tasty morsel. It might be rat poison, but I'll be damned if it isn't the best tasting rat poison on the market. I'm tempted. In fact, lock me in 2.5. Texas A&M. That's our second bet of the week. We got Army 23.5. We got Texas A&M minus 2.5. We'll bet those officially when we wrap this thing up here. But tentatively locked in 2.5. Texas A&M. I like them to win that game, and I like them to win by probably 7-ish. I would say. Clemson's favored by 10.5 versus Louisville. Ever so slight lean to Clemson in this one. Louisville's kind of, sneaky. I don't know what to think of Louisville. I don't think they're all that good, but I think they can maybe hold it close to Clemson, but there's a real possibility that Clemson wins by 30 in this game, and I wouldn't be shocked for either outcome. I do think Clemson wins either way, though, in this one. So we got Tennessee favored by 16.5 versus Kentucky, and now Kentucky does stink. They're going to have a tough time scoring more than 13. Probably going to have a hard time scoring double digits in this one. But I still don't really trust Tennessee all that much. I trust their defense, but Nico hasn't really come along. I don't know on that one. I'm staying away. Pittsburgh is on the road at SMU. SMU is favored by 7.5. And I think that's honestly an appropriate line. Pittsburgh hasn't been tested at all. SMU has looked real good at times. I think this is it's a big spot for SMU. A win here would do a lot for their dark horse candidacy in the ACC. Ever so slight lean to SMU, but I think this line, that 7.5 does scare me, and I'm staying away from this one. I think the line is pretty spot on right now. Okay, so that's the top 25. Any matchups in the ACC we should hit on? See if there's a line that catches my eye scrolling through here. Nothing's really jumping off the page. UNC is favored by 2.5 at Florida State. In theory, I should bet that, but I'll die in a cold grave before. I mean, hopefully I don't die in the grave, but you know what I'm saying. But before I bet on either of those teams, I'm just not doing it. I'm simply not doing it. Yeah, I'm staying away from that one for sure. UNC's favored by 2.5. Go ahead and bet it if you want it. That's a yucky game. Yucky, gross game. Okay, that's the only one that really caught my eye for the ACC. Let's take a look at the Big 12 here. Arizona's on the road at UCF. Sad matchup. UCF favored by 6.5. Who cares? That's my take on that one. Who cares? If you're betting on that one, I mean, call the hotline, man. You got some problems. You got some real problems if you're placing money on Arizona at UCF. Woof. Arizona State is favored by 3 points at Oklahoma State. I'm tempted on that one. I am real tempted on that one. I still don't know what to make of Arizona State, though. They've not really been tested at all. Their big non-con win was against Mississippi State, and that's a win that's aging like milk right now. I mean, that's full-on curds at this point. That is as spoiled as spoiled milk can get. Whatever. I'll respond to my friends after this episode here. That's stinky. That's a stinky win there. That is all to say. Hard lean to Arizona State, but I can't bring myself to bet it right now. We might revisit that one, but for right now, I just can't bring myself to bet it. Hey, if Cam Scatterbo goes off, that's all you need to know. And I think Oklahoma State's rushing defense, we will revisit that one. There's a good chance I still bet on Arizona State, though. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Who cares about TCU Baylor? Baylor's favored by 3, I guess. So, again, if you're betting that game, just call the hotline. I think it's going to be exciting, but come on, guys. Let's try and rein it in here on that one. Anything going on in the Big Ten? Another hold your nose sort of game. Northwestern's favored by 1.5 at Purdue. I think Northwestern is bad, but they're not as bad as Purdue. I mean, I just feel like I'm not placing my hard money on Northwestern, but if there's a play, it's that one. It's Northwestern minus 1.5. Probably the under at 47.5 too. Those are just two miserable teams. Anything else? Nebraska's favored by 6.5 at UCLA. I think this is the spot where they stop the bleeding. Give me Nebraska 6.5. That's our third bet of the slate here. I love Nebraska in this spot. A spot where, like I said, they got to stop the bleeding. And they have to get right. I think they get right in a big way versus UCLA. UCLA stinks, and Nebraska has stunk over the last couple of weeks, but they're much better than UCLA. I think they win, and I think they run away with this one, so give me Nebraska minus 6.5. Iowa's favored by 3 versus Wisconsin. I think that's an appropriate line. Slightly into Wisconsin. I think they could very easily win this game. I think that's just going to be a hard-fought one. Maybe a slight lean on the over at 40.5 too. I think both these teams might score a little bit more than expected, but hey, your money gets burned in a pile when you bet on overs in the Big Ten, so just remember that. USC is on the road at Washington. USC is favored by 2.5. I have no real opinion on that game. I don't have an opinion on the spread. I don't have really an opinion on the over-under at 55.5. These are two, like, I mean, you take the expectations out of it, obviously. People are understanding that Washington lost approximately everyone this off season, and they're not exactly like a marquee year in, year out type of program. They're like kind of an Ole Miss sort of program, like, like Josh Pate likes to say, they're a window program. Every 2-3 years, they can build up some talent, strike it rich in the portal, and then make a title run, but the year after that title run, they're going to be bereft of talent. It just is what it is. So different expectations. I think people were expecting a little bit more from USC, especially after big wins to start the season. But ultimately, these two teams are the Spider-Man meme right now. There are, quarterbacks that are, I guess, solid, nothing to write home about at the end of the day in Miller Moss and Will Rogers. Defenses that are okay, I guess. Offenses that are, solid, but not great. These two teams are the exact same. That is why USC is only favored by 2.5. I guess they're probably a little bit more talented team. That's where that number comes from. But that's an appropriate line. I mean, that game could go either way, and it wouldn't shock me no matter how it turns out. SEC now. Let's see what's going on right now. Oh boy, Vanderbilt's at Auburn. Auburn's favored by 6.5 with Vanderbilt there. I just don't trust that one. Maybe if the line moves in Auburn's favor, like if that one moves to 7, I might play this on Vanderbilt here. If 7.5, I'm certainly going to play it, but stay tuned on that one. I might be reevaluating that at some point, trying to bet on the underdog there in Vandy. Jesus, Oklahoma's playing Maine. I mean, I guess we play UMass here in a couple weeks. Well, actually this week. So this is the off week, I suppose. Mississippi State, by the way, is favored against UMass, 18.5. Listen, if we want a second win this season, it's got to come this week. That UMass is 2-6. They're terrible. We're terrible. Let's just hope our terrible isn't more terrible than their terrible at this point. Boys, we gotta, rally the horses, rally the troops, rally everyone you can. Rally Dak. I think Dak is the current iteration of bully right now. I hope I didn't just literally dead name the Bulldog over there. I do apologize if that is the case. We need to rally everyone for the cause here. We need this one bad. Because if we lose to UMass, the vibes might be at an all-time low, folks. All-time low. Mississippi State is favored by 18.5, and you're going to have to be a fool to bet on that spread. I don't care how it looks. Just get me a win. Please. Please. It's probably the only other win we're going to get this season. Just please bring one home. I need this. I need this real bad right now. Just please. Just bring it home. That's where I'll end that off. Bring it home. And, on that just absolutely chipper, lovely note, that's it for this episode of Unqualified Analysis. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Looking forward to Week 10 of the college football slate here. I'm sure I'm going to add a few more bets here in college football. You noticed there was a lot of them that I liked, just didn't move on here. So we'll revisit that. Hey, put a pin in that. We'll revisit that Thursday. But for right now, that is all. Thank you so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. As always, like, subscribe, rate, share with 15 or so of your friends. Help me grow this thing a little bit. Why don't you? And once you're done with that, go ahead, follow me on the Twitters at CalebVUA. That link will be down in the description. It's also right there, bottom right corner of the screen if you're watching on the YouTube. We do this thing twice a week. College football on Tuesdays, NFL on Thursdays. And like always, I mean, if you want to contact the show, either shoot me a DM on the Twitters or hit me up at the email unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. That's also down in the description. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. And as always, I've got no clue what I'm talking about. Absolutely no clue what I'm talking about. One thing I learned this week, once again, didn't write anything down. Was busy with football and generally making a fool of myself this weekend. That's another story for another time, unfortunately. I didn't get around to collating any fun facts. I will say though, the maker of the guillotine was ultimately, he ultimately had the goal of making a more humane way of execution because they used to draw and quarter people back when the monarchy was coming around. And ironically enough, the people whose idea it was to introduce the guillotine pretty much all were executed by it. So probably a fact you already knew. Still pretty fun. Nothing more fun than the guillotine. Nothing. Absolutely nothing more fun than the guillotine. And with that, just to recap, we added today Army minus 23.5, Texas A&M minus 2.5, Nebraska minus 6.5. And with that, I will talk to y'all on Thursday. Take it easy. Enjoy the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and then, we'll just start ramping up towards the weekend. Okay, ready? Break.